Oops, just check something. Well, I don't know what setting I just changed on the thing below me, but of course, then me, Patrick Loftus. I'm a real estate lawyer in Chicago. You can find me on Instagram, Loftus_law, and on TikTok at Loftus Law. And if you're a real dork, go find me on LinkedIn because why not? Why not? And I'm on YouTube Shorts. Go look at my shorts. Joining me and my partner in figuring out the ultimate answer to this question of whether you need a realtor to buy or sell a home is Joey Mathews, the VA loan nerd. Joey, can you introduce yourself?
Why, hello. This is Joey Mathews, the VA loan nerd, NMLS 1330694. I am all over the country. I do all really love VA loans because there is such an incredible lack of education in that space.
And Joey, you and I could probably fill up the next hour talking about all of the misconceptions that are out there when it comes to VA loans, but that's not the topic of conversation today.
That's not the topic. That's not the topic today.
We'll do it another time.
Topic of the day.
Topic of the day is which meadow in the Phoenix area is Joey Mathews, the VA loan nerd, trudging around?
So the fact is, my internet's not working in the office. So I said, if my internet's not going to work, I'm not going to be standing in here. So I'm going outside. I'll be on my phone for this.
All right.
But yeah.
So we know if he's standing outside, he's not anywhere near Chicago because it is freezing today. But he is in some office park, nondescript office park in Phoenix, enjoying some fresh air. All right. So before we get to that topic that you're all just itching for us to get to, I've got to do a little tease. We're going to start elsewhere, but we're going to get into it. Give us about 10, 15 minutes if you need to, take out the trash or, use the. Okay, never mind. So
I'm
Joey,
going to spend 10 to 15 minutes talking about what you don't want to talk about. So that way we can lead into what you actually want to hear about. So we're just giving everyone a 10 to 15 minute break to ignore me. Is that what we're doing here?
This is what. Well, I was going to use a term I probably could get in trouble for, but this is the anticipation. We want to edge our audience, all three people. I think I could say that without getting in too much trouble. So Joey, give us an idea. The first thing I really want to talk about, because it's something that is almost the first conversation topic on people's minds when it comes to real estate, especially these days, is interest rates.
Where are rates at?
Where are rates at generally? I know you can't speak specifically, and give us some ideas of the most recent macroeconomic indicators that are driving those, and what we can expect or what we should be looking for in the next week.
The rate in general, the prevailing rate in any loan, right, has been around 7 for honestly several months now. In October, we had a very short period where we were touching 6, but it has been 7 for a long time, right? So that's going to be my very broad definition of where our rates at today. Where are they going? Hey, I'm done answering that question, right? Joey Stradamus died and Joey Reality lives. So where are they going? I'm not going to be able to give you a good prediction, but how is that sausage made in the mortgage-backed security markets, right? It is a traded security, so you could buy it. Individuals can buy. It's like trading stocks. You're trading long-dated treasury yields for return on those purchases, right? So the 10-year treasury is our biggest indicator of where the rate market is. As of today, the 10-year treasury is at about a 4.5. Where can you expect a 4.5% yield? So
if you invest money, and this is the 10-year treasury. So if you want to buy essentially a piece of debt that the U.S. government is going to take on, it will repay you on an annual basis 4.5% on that debt today.
There he goes.
All right.
There he goes. This man knows his money. But how does that indicate where rates are? So there's not a direct correlation, but there's a direct causation, I guess I would say. But there's a correlation for sure. When you see the 10-year treasury at a 4.5, you can expect the rate market. In a normal rate market, the difference.
All right. Joey cut out there for
Wait,
just.
sorry,
Oh, there he is.
Just dropped for
In a
second.
normal rate market, the difference.
Is 2 points. So 4.5, you would see 6.5% on rate. Since COVID, that spread has increased all the way to 3% at times, but generally now we're closer to 2.5%. So when you add 4.5 and 2.5, you're looking at rates around 7. Okay, so it's just we'll call it a rule of thumb, right? But it's not a guarantee, but it gives you a really good idea of where rates are going to be if you're in that market. If you look at the 10-year Treasury note. How is the sausage made in terms of rates? Is there are MBS coupons, 30-year, 15-year, Ginnie Mae, Fannie Mae, like all these different coupons that get traded as well as the long-dated bonds. And obviously these are long-dated coupons too. So very similar concept. You're looking for a return on that initial investment. And I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but man, I went down a rabbit hole yesterday, and we have so much MBS held by other countries. And dude, I'm not going to talk about it today, but if you want to go down a rabbit hole, other countries bought a lot of our MBS and treasuries, even though technically they weren't supposed to be allowed to, back in 2020. They opened up trading to other countries on our securities, our mortgage-backed securities, to other countries, and I don't know. Ugly rabbit hole. Go have fun.
Interesting. All right. So it sounds like, although that's a topic of perhaps significant interest, it's enough. There's enough of that is a bit conspiracy theory, a little bit too conspiracy theory-y.
A little too deep for here.
Yeah, we're not necessarily prepared to publish that. We're not going to be the ones to break that news. I think at the end of the day we have reputations to uphold, because if you start spouting conspiracy theories, it can get ugly. So that's all fair. Yeah. Now, I want to unpack that just a tad bit more, because it got a little jargony for a second. MBS stands for mortgage-backed securities, right? And if you're wondering what mortgage-backed securities are, if you ever saw the movie The Big Short, it's kind of the thing that was at the core of what happened, right? So every time someone takes out a mortgage, that's one instance of debt, right? So let's say you borrow $100,000, and that's going toward the purchase of a home. And a mortgage is really just what turns the home into collateral, okay? Now, the note that's attached to the mortgage, so the mortgage being the thing that turns the real estate into collateral, it is connected with a note. The note is just the IOU. The IOU tells us how much you're borrowing from the bank, from the lender, and how you're going to repay it. Those notes are tradable. They're not quite as liquid as cash, meaning I can't go to the store and take the note that I bought from Chase and buy groceries with it, but I can trade it on the open market on Wall Street for other things. And because people on Wall Street are clever and they figure out all kinds of ways to make money, what they do is they take these. There are so many that can be bought and sold. It would be extremely cumbersome to do it on an individual basis. So they take these things and they put them into bundles, right? And the bundles, they're all kind of flavor of bundles, right? Just like ice cream, I suppose. But the bundles, depending on how much risk you want to undertake, you can either buy a bundle of really, really safe loans. So really wealthy people borrowing not that much money, and they're almost certainly good for it. You'll get paid at a certain interest rate that is less than if you buy a bundle of mortgages that represent a bunch of riskier buyers, right?
Nailed it. Yes.
So how does the trading of mortgage-backed securities correlate, if it does, with the trading of 10-year treasuries?
Well, it's because they're similar concepts. You're purchasing these long-dated securities with the hope of a solid return. Obviously, when I say a hope of a solid return, it's because some of these are going to default, some of these are going to get sold, but you should be getting that larger return over time, right? So you're hedging your money that you'll make more money by buying these large securities, the same way that you're hedging your money that you're going to make money off of the long-dated treasury yields. So when you're looking at long-dated yields, you're taking a risk on economic conditions that you see over the next several years. So you're making a long-term financial decision when you're purchasing these securities and these bonds.
Hold on. Was that a rooster I just heard in the background?
It was.
Jeez, what's going on here?
That is the Maple House Coffee Shop.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, I completely disrupted you, but I couldn't let that slide. Continue, please, if you can.
What we need to do one day, and obviously I work in the mortgage field where I'm like dealing with the activity of the day and what's happened in the economy recently that's affecting rates today. But I would love to get a actual financial consultant, someone who actually trades these things daily, to really come in and just hammer us all with information on the risks and benefits associated with long-dated securities and long-dated bonds. Right?
Boy,
that would be beautiful. If
you thought the Home Buyers Hour was a boring show, just wait until we get a financial consultant on to talk to us about all of the nuts and bolts of what goes into interest rates. Now, I'm weird a little bit, or a lot of bit, depending on who you ask. I would probably enjoy that. I would probably enjoy that. And there are dozens of us who would. But that's why you don't generally get that. My TikTok feed, I showed it to a friend of mine, and he just couldn't believe that there weren't any. There's literally no scantily clad men or women on it. It's all like sports and nerdy stuff. And that's just how I roll, baby.
That's how it would be.
Okay, so yeah, and I guess I'll put a bit of a bow on the end of this discussion about interest rates. We scraped the surface here, and look, there's a lot that goes into it. If it were easy to predict what's going on with interest rates, well, the world would probably be.
It's a globalized economy, man. I wouldn't be doing this anymore.
Sure, the world would be a more civilized place, and we could all rely on what is going to happen in the future much more easily, and I could probably sleep better at night. But at the end of the day, there's 7 billion people in the world, and they all have a different opinion on one thing or the other, and a lot of them are in Wall Street trying to trade and make money, and we're in some ways beholden to them when it comes to that stuff. If you want to know more about the history of mortgage-backed securities and how they came about sometime in the 1980s. And there's a book called Liar's Poker by Michael Lewis. He's the same fella who wrote Moneyball, if you're a sports person. And it basically goes into his experience as I think he was like his first 3 years out of his MBA. He worked at Goldman Sachs alongside the person who effectively invented the mortgage-backed security. Prior to that, it was viewed as something that you really couldn't securitize because the fact is most mortgages don't last 30 years. Most people are going to pay those mortgages off at some point. So it can be quite difficult to figure out what those investments are ultimately going to pay. If I borrow money and I pay it off in 2 years' time, that investment has paid differently than if I borrow that same amount of money and I pay it in 10 years' time. They figured out a way. Someone did some fancy math, and they figured it all out. So anyways, Liar's Poker by Michael Lewis.
I guess 5 to 7 years is how long a mortgage is going to last. That's my guess.
Yeah. Well, and
2021, they're going to last a little bit longer, but the average is still going to be around that 5 to 7 year mark.
Mm-hmm. And someone actually took that data and took it and said, look, this is reliable enough that we can turn this into a security that people are willing to trade, and off they went. And then 2008 happened. Go watch The Big Short if you want to know more about that one. And we are where we are today. What's going to happen with interest rates? That's kind of the thing, right? And I think, Joey, I'm going to just give my own personal opinion, and this is just based on what I've read and seen. It seems to me that the uncertainty of what's to happen in Washington, what's to happen outside of Washington, just like markets, they hate uncertainty. I think people in general hate uncertainty, and I think it's causing a lot of people to put big decisions off. What's one big decision in someone's life? Buying or selling their home. And that seems to be something that is informing what I think is seems to be a bit of a slow start to the spring market.
Yeah, it actually felt originally like it started really hot. January was one of my best months for leads. Myself, I only have had one closing in February. I haven't had a single a month where I only closed one loan in so long, which is insane to me. It's insane to me, but that also tells me that there are, and I have so many pre-approved buyers shopping and making offers. So people, it does look like all these people that we're talking about putting their house on the market, because after the Super Bowl is when, like, the spring housing market kickoff is, right?
Right.
It doesn't feel like we've gotten that influx of inventory that we're used to.
No,
and it would
same.
be great to have Steve here, talk about that a little bit, but that's just what it feels like to me. And then the buyers I'm working with, they're still on that, oh, I'm waiting for rates to come down. I'm waiting for prices to come down. And it's just, everyone is giving themselves a reason to say no, but I do believe that you're right. There's economic uncertainty in Washington. Well, people view uncertainty in Washington, and they're allowing it to affect their lives, regardless of the fact that even uncertainty in Washington is only going to last a few years. This is a long-term decision when you're buying a house.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it does seem like a much slower start for actually getting contracts than usual, but in terms of activity, it's been crazy. It's so weird. It's just the weirdest. It's one of the weirdest times I've had in the market.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you said that over the past 5 years?
I know. It's been weird for 5 years. It's been super weird for 5 years. But there's so many. I mean, I had 3 people apply last night. I don't know if they're going to buy. I don't know what the situation is, but like they.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting a lot of people. Also, it's like, I get lots of phone calls. There's lots of activity. I'm certainly busy, but yeah, as far as the ultimate goal, which is closing on homes, those are fewer. And also, I think that myself, and I think maybe some of the others of us in the real estate game. I hate when people talk like that in the industry, in real estate. We grew accustomed to people jumping the gun on the spring market. It seemed like the past few years, at least, people would, they'd say, well, the Super Bowl is the official or the unofficial launch of the spring market. They go, I'm going to jump in 2 weeks early, and then the next year was 3 weeks, and then 4 weeks. And I think we're maybe seeing the opposite of that, where whoever jumped in early, and there were a few, it doesn't seem to have been followed by a pile in.
Yeah, it is not at all. It's quite the opposite. It's very strange, I think, and especially with everything that's going on with this. I don't know how it's pronounced, but doggy, whatever it's called. I mean, they're making cuts at the FHA. They're talking about now FHA loans are going to take longer, which I disagree with. It's going to take longer for companies that originate loans like myself. It's going to take longer for them to package it and get sold to FHA, but it shouldn't affect closing timelines. And that's one of those like fear-monger things that you see in the market is, oh, the FHA, they're cutting off so much of their staff, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to affect how long it takes you to close on a house. It's only going to affect how long it takes for the FHA to purchase that loan and securitize that loan. Right?
Okay. So let me, before we pivot onto our main topic, I feel it worth getting out there, at least to the extent that we can. When you are borrowing, and Joey, please confirm if I'm correct or not. When you are borrowing money through a federal program, you are not actually borrowing that money from the government. You are still borrowing that money from a private entity. It's just that there is an overlay of rules on top of that, which, if the private entity follows, then that loan will be it will be given certain guarantees by the federal government. And yeah, so it's those private entities are still happy to lend you that money. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
All right. So for all of you out there, we have 2 people watching on the live stream. If either of you are pursuing an FHA or a VA loan, do not fear. Nothing about the nothing about the cuts that they're trying to make, which who knows if they're legal or not. That's a topic for probably every other show on this channel, not this one. I don't know enough about it, but don't let that put you off of buying a home at this juncture, unless you're a federal employee, in which case, God bless you.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So the main topic, the one I teased at the very beginning, do you need a realtor to buy or sell a home? And, I didn't pick this topic out of the blue necessarily. It all stems back to the National Association of Realtors lawsuits where they were defendant. There are many of them, but they all were settled basically in one shot. And as part of the settlement, there were some new rules that were instituted, that were put in place, that realtors now have to follow. And the two main rules are that, number one, a cooperating buyer broker commission, i.e. the commission that the buyer's broker is going to earn for being a part of the transaction, earned from the seller, is no longer allowed to be put in a listing. So the buyer and their broker are effectively going in blind in terms of what is the buyer broker going to earn from the seller. In conjunction with that, there's also now a requirement, and this is probably the more important or the more the change that has the more influence, or the greater effect, is what I'm trying to say, is
Impact?
that buyer.
You looking for impact?
Impact. There you go. Sometimes it's just the words. I got too many in my head.
Lawyers, man. All right. Keep going.
I'll tell you what. You want to spend the rest of the time complaining about lawyers? I got complaints, baby. So the second requirement is that buyer brokers must now have a written retainer agreement with their buyers. Okay, and that may not sound like a big deal if you're not in the real estate business. It is a big deal for realtors because, by and large, and you'll hear a lot of realtors say, "Oh, well, I've always been doing that." And if so, great. That change wasn't really going to affect you in a meaningful way. But I would say more realtors than not would work with a buyer without getting a written representation agreement from the get-go. The thought would be, I'm going to meet the buyer. We're going to tour a couple homes, and we're going to try to see if there's a good connection, build up rapport, and then maybe we'll get him to sign a buyer representation agreement after that, if that is a good fit. Or they just went in with the assumption that whatever homes I'm showing these people, if they buy one of them, I'll get the commission. That's no longer the case. If you do not have a buyer broker representation agreement, you're not entitled to make anything. And that was a big change for a lot of real estate brokers, and it makes many of them nervous. And some of them are finding that to be a big obstacle, and some of them are finding it actually to be something that helps them in a lot of ways. And whether or not it's an obstacle or helpful, I'll leave that to another week when we have a real estate broker in studio, because we'll be able to ask them and hear more directly from the horse's mouth. But as a result of all of this, a lot of the discourse, just generally that I've seen, whether it's on social media or traditional news media, conversations with people in the industry, is that a lot of people are taking the steps to try to buy or sell a home without a realtor. They think that they can do it themselves. They have access to the MLS, more or less, through the various websites that are out there. Google real estate, they'll come up. I don't need to plug any of them, but it's an interesting phenomenon that it's not like this is brand new, but I'm certainly seeing more people reaching out to me saying, I'm going to go the route of just hiring a real estate lawyer. or I'm just going to go out there. I'm going to try to work with without a realtor, and I'm going to make offers to listing brokers and try to get something under contract. They would either want to save money or whatever the motivation is. Joey, are you seeing the same thing? Are you seeing a lot of people come in and make inquiries with you and your company, and they're specifically stating, hey, I'm not planning on using a realtor?
I have, and I think it's interesting. And when I say I have, I mean like I have more than I have in the past. Right in the past, It was like, no, dude, use the realtor. Like they're gonna get paid. Don't worry about it.
Right.
But now it's obviously on their mind. Like, oh, but what if I have to? What if I have to pay this X amount of percent to my buyer? Can I still buy a house? Or I'm sorry, to my broker, can I still buy a house? So again, it's leading with fear, but you have got to talk to your agent about the offers that you make. And at the end of the day, they're going to structure a deal that's going to help you win, right? Because this is a professional industry, right? And granted, there's how many agents in the country, and 71% did no deals last year?
Yeah, something like that.
A good likelihood that if you are getting referred to someone, it's because the person that you're being referred to is a professional. They have professional standards. They will be good at their job. They will be an advocate for you. They will earn every cent of whatever commission is paid, and they will negotiate to get the seller to pay their commission, right? They'll also talk to you about your financial situation. Like, do you want to make offers where you're paying the commission to make a quote-unquote stronger offer, right? But at the end of the day, it's all about it's baking the numbers and baking commission into the offer, or however it's structured. Like, you cannot go in flying blind, because if you don't understand real estate really well, you will get taken advantage of. It's just, it's how it's going to end up.
Yeah, it's certainly difficult. And here are some of the headwinds I see. And I'm trying to take kind of a neutral stance on this, because really, if someone has already taken a decision that they want to go without a realtor, I don't want to dissuade them from at least satisfying themselves either, that worked for me, or, this is actually not the route I want to go. There's no better teacher than experience. And so, I don't really have a dog in that fight, in the sense that whether or not someone goes under contract with a realtor, my job, really the only difference is I'm likely going to be preparing the offer for them. And I've been working. Yeah. It's a work in progress as far as what my how I fit into that in terms of the the cost. I do increase my fee for having to do extra work. I mean, I don't work for free. I don't expect anyone else would either. But I do definitely see some headwinds, and let's kind of approach it from two different perspectives. Here in Chicago, we still have really tight inventory in the neighborhoods that people are most interested in buying real estate in. That's the most neutral way I can say it. I had someone reach out to me, and they're like, I'm having a lot of difficulty because every time I go and I want to tour a home, I reach out to the listing broker. Immediately, they want to have me sign a representation agreement. And of course, that's kind of the opposite of what I'm trying to accomplish here. And, from the realtor's perspective, the most conservative thing they can do is make sure that they are not in the same home with a consumer without that consumer either being represented by another agent or by them, right? If someone comes in, because for all they know, and we'll talk about the merits of this thought process, but for all they know, that person is kind of a Trojan horse for someone that's trying to get you, right? The settlement wasn't the end of the game here. Those new rules aren't the end of the game. The folks that brought those lawsuits, they're out there watching to see if agents are actually complying with what was agreed to. So if if you're exercising an abundance of caution, I can see where an agent would say, look, I'm sorry, I just can't show you this home without you signing a representation agreement. And again, that defeats the purpose. So that's one headwind is the notion that you're just not going to get in the door as a buyer without some kind of piece of paper signed with an agent. They're not going to take that risk. I just read that Alabama it's the first state that I've heard of that is modifying their rules to say that a buyer, an unrepresented buyer, it's not illegal for them, or it's not you're not violating any rules or laws if, as a listing agent, you show a home in that context to a buyer that's not represented by an agent. So I think that some solutions are probably on the way for that particular conundrum, I would say. But at the moment, that I've had people running into that, and it's specific to, I think, a market where there is an abundance of buyers and a shortage of available homes. A listing broker just doesn't have to take any risks to end up with at least one, if not more than one offer. I think if you turn the tables and, let's say, there's some markets out there that are not doing so great. If you're trying to buy a condo in South Florida right now, you've got your pick, a pick of, rotten. But I think an agent in Florida,
right now, non-warrantable.
Well, yeah, and let's say you've got a boatload of cash and more cash than sense, and you want to buy a condo on in Fort Myers on the beach. You're going to have your pick. Agents are going to be dying and probably, falling all over themselves to get you to buy their unit because those things are sitting for all kinds of reasons. Yeah. But, that's one headwind I'm seeing. Now, when you talk to someone who's a buyer who is looking to dip their toe in buying without a realtor, how much advice can you give them in terms of, I'm sure you are able to give them a pre-approval. Like, how do you send them off on their way with that pre-approval?
So I am very different in that I do get a lot of calls from people that are unrepresented at the time that they call me. I know most lenders, they get the call after they already have a realtor, right? So they go realtor, lender, onto the market, and for whatever reason, I'm different. I get a lot of past client referrals or social media referrals, whatever, but it goes me, and then literally just like talk about the realtor situation, and then I've done this poorly. I should be just giving them off to a realtor that I trust, but I have not done a good job of that. I'm just like, all right, here's your pre-approval. When you're shopping, make sure you when you get to have a realtor, connect them with me, blah blah blah. Totally the wrong way to do business. I'm failing my my friends. I'll change that. But I tell them, like, hey, and if they bring up those concerns, well, I don't want to be able to pay or pay the commission, blah, blah. I'm like, here's the deal. You got to talk to a realtor no matter what. Like, you have to know what you're saying no to before you say no.
That's a good point.
So I'll have them have that conversation with whoever they're going to talk to. And from now on, I'm going to refer to people that I trust, that I know do right by clients, so they can have an in-depth conversation about what these buyer broker comp agreements look like and how to navigate the home purchase process with the agreement, right? I have a shopper right now that they made an offer on a home, and like they're going in at list price, all these wonderful things, and then the sell side comes back and they're like, oh, we're also just not. Granted, I don't believe it was listed in the MLS this way, but they said we're not going to pay any buyer broker compensation.
It wouldn't be listed in the MLS. That it shouldn't be.
Okay, I don't see the MLS unless someone sends me an MLS listing sheet, which happens few and far between, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, well, there's a reason for that, but okay.
but all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're not paying any buyer broker comp. Like, and so it's the buyer just says, all right, well, then we don't have a deal. I mean, I was offering you your full list price, and now I can't afford it because the buyer broker comp is gone, right?
Yeah.
So it's just it's crazy, and I think that the seller's doing themselves a disservice because that house has been on the market for 60 days, right?
Yeah, overplaying your hand is what I call that.
Yeah, and how much money have you lost in paying your mortgage? Because there is a mortgage on that house. How much money have you lost in just paying your mortgage that you could apply towards just getting the house sold?
Well, and that's a cost that is easily is known and easily known. But I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. From a seller's perspective, no matter what the situation is, time is never on your side. The more quickly you can move in the context of selling your home, in most cases, it's going to be to your benefit. Now, that's setting aside, we're talking about a traditional arm's length transaction where your house has been on the market and exposed to the general group of buyers. I'm not talking about like e-buyers or, someone that comes in with an unsolicited offer or, you've heard on the radio, different situation. But yeah, I think in terms of the hard costs of mortgage, association, if your furnace decides to go on the fritz and deduct $915 from your bank account unexpectedly, not saying that happened to me or anything, but it's it's unwelcome. It's such
comparisons, but like in that situation, like, oh, I'm just gonna fix my furnace myself. This $14,000 furnace.
Dear
People are
God.
gonna call the HVAC person, right? Like, that's the way to do it. You call the HVAC person, you call the professional to handle it. But when you're talking about a house that's hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're like, oh, I could just do this. I'll just do this myself. I'm gonna know more about the guy who's done this for the last 20 years and closed 100 transactions last year. Get out of here, man. You lose money by thinking you're better than you are. And sorry, buyers, or I'm sorry, sellers, but it's true.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I get
amped up.
And the statistics bear that out, right? And I don't have them in front of me because I'm sitting here just riffing with you on a podcast or a radio show, depending on where you listen, or a live stream. All kind of ways to describe what this is, but if I were to be fielding comments and questions where I could come back later on after I've researched it, I mean, I know that on a percentage basis, on aggregate, unrepresented sellers, they get average 6% less for their home. And here's the insidious thing about those kinds of statistics is that people typically believe in themselves that they are exceptional, and they go, "Yeah, average. Don't even pitch me anything about an average. I'm me.
On the high end, you're average. Yeah,
brother, I'm me. Do you know me? Come on." And the fact is, you're right. I mean, and I'll get more in. Let me just talk more about this furnace thing.
The cost of bravado, baby.
I want to get this furnace thing off my chest once and for all. Yeah. I mean, could I have gone and into the furnace and sort of, messed around with it and figured out in the end what the problem was? Yeah. I mean, the guy who came out and fixed it, my wife goes, "It costs how much?" And I'm like, $915. She's like, "That guy was here for like 5 minutes. It was more like 30. But I mean, it felt like he was in and out, and all of a sudden thing works great." And, the fact is, it's like, the amount of time that I did not spend trying to fix that myself was very much a win in terms of my ultimate financial standing. Okay. I know enough to know to reach out to my property manager and find out who is in the building most often on furnace repairs. Okay, because I'm living in a condo and there's 184 units. There's going to be someone that's in most often. I know the realtor who's in most often. I wouldn't use him for reasons we can get into some other time. But here's why I did that. Because number one, I know they're not going to be the cheapest, and I take that into account right off the bat. But what I know is that if there's 184 units, it's 184 of the same furnace that these folks have been in and out. I mean, the guy literally walked in through the front door. It's a quick right into the furnace room. And he opens up, he goes, "That." And I'm like, He's like, it's the blower fan. I was just like, if you say so. He's like, yeah, I just replaced one earlier this morning, and we're only at 11 a.m.
Oh my God.
I was just like, okay. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna send my guy out to the truck. He had the part on the truck, and that's why it was only 30 minutes. Then that's exactly why I called that guy. And also his paperwork is already with the association. I don't have to worry about that part of it. So, it's through my own experience and knowing, I know not to do that myself. If you're going to sell your home or going to buy a home, and trying to eschew the use of experts, of professionals, expect to pay a cost for that. And you go, well, it's a hot market. I know what my neighbor's unit sold for. I should sell for about the same. Maybe, or your neighbor has all updated appliances and new floors, and you've got $1.50 a square foot, plastic floors, and they've got hardwood. I mean, there's these details end up mattering as you'd be surprised to find out. And here's another headwind I see for buyers. And again, I'm really trying to take this from a neutral perspective. And if I sound like I'm trying to be pro realtor, I mean, I'm just laying it out there, truly, because we do have time. We will get into perhaps some advantages that you may have under certain circumstances without a realtor. But what many buyers, and this is specifically on a buyer side of things, if you're going into that expecting that you're going to get a discount for the percentage of the listing broker's commission because you're coming in unrepresented, the bad news for you is that the listing agreement that the listing agent has with that seller already sets forth what they're paying the listing agent as well as what they are going to share with a buyer broker. Now, depending on, I suppose, who you're dealing with, what it's likely to say, because I know how realtors are, they're gonna write that agreement where it's an aggregate, let's say 5 or 6%. Let's just use 5% because people get mad when I say 6%. I'm never 6%. Sure. I don't know. Whatever. We're just chucking numbers out there. If it says that, and it's going to go on to say if the buyer is represented by a broker, then this percent of that will go to that buyer broker. That full 6% is going to the listing broker regardless. So you're not going in with the advantage you thought you had unless you have the fortune of finding a home that's either for sale by owner or is off market, in those circumstances. And I get probably 2 or 3 a year where someone is I literally got one this weekend where someone is buying the unit that they've been renting from their landlord. In those cases, you can pretty much go, whatever price we agree on, so let's shave 6%, 5% off the top. And, I think there's some fairly solid rationale behind that. But if you're looking to save money by not paying a buyer broker, you may be in for an unfortunate rude awakening as far as that goes. And
sorry, I'm sorry. For a second there, like the audio on my end, you sounded just like Alvin, and I was laughing my butt off. I had to kill myself.
Well, I hope that's what I hope I'm able to get that, because that'll be fun. Do I sound like me now, or do I need to go really low?
You sound normal now. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. I
I'm
unmuted when I stopped laughing.
I'll ask Devin about that because I think it's probably him playing games. But he's confirmed it. Okay. All right. Were you gonna jump in with a comment there, or where were we at with that?
No, I mean I like the tangent. I like our tangents. You're not saving money, and sellers aren't saving money when they go for sale by owner, because there's a flip side to this. Selling by owner. And I know I work with the buyers, right? But I also get sellers that sell by owner. The appraisals that I get on these things, I don't have to share those with the selling side, right? And I'm not going to share those with the selling side because they didn't purchase them. But I have seen price gaps as much as $100,000 on not huge purchases. But like $100,000, dude, I'm telling you, it was a $300,000 purchase. The appraisal came back at just over $400,000.
And it's not like in-laws selling to like their,
No.
Wow.
It was a full arm's length transaction, and I'm just like, dude, this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're paying friggin' 10%, which obviously you're not going to pay 10% for a listing, but oh my God, how much money did this person lose by going for sale by owner, thinking that they knew what they were doing? Like, So yeah, it works on both sides.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, so that's a tough story to swallow, and I know our good friend Steve Davis told a story about someone who was approached by an iBuyer, whomever it was, is one of these,
yeah.
We buy ugly homes or something like that, and they ended up selling what was effectively a $330,000 condo all day long for like $216,000, and those stories are out there. It's maybe it's not going to happen to you. I hope it doesn't happen to anyone. I'm not out there, I'm not a hater like that. Real estate is worth what it's worth, right? And if everyone should get the full value of what they're selling, because it's going to be, in most cases, the most valuable thing you own. It's going to be your best store of wealth, maybe outside of your 401k or something, depending on how long you've been contributing to a retirement fund or whatever. But it's, for most of us who have been homeowners for some time, it's going to be sort of the one thing, no matter how life is going financially, you kind of look at, what do I owe on this thing, and how much is it roughly worth? And you find some solace in that, right? And to think that 100,000 plus of that could just evaporate just because of one bad decision, man, it's tough to swallow thinking about that.
That's sad.
So, I mean,
it happens almost every time I have a FSBO, man. FSBO is for sale by owner, FSBO.
Right.
They always appraise higher than they sell. Like, I very rarely have I seen a FSBO that appraises even around the sale price.
That's
it's
interesting.
Insane how much sellers lose.
I would love to know why that is. It's an interesting thing. Maybe it's as simple as once they arrived at what they thought the value of the property was, they sliced off 6%. But when you're talking about a $300,000 home,
$100K is different. That appraises for $400.
Yeah, that ain't 6%.
That's disgusting.
Sheesh.
No, I would venture to say it's right around 25%.
Wowzers. I mean, no, it's 33. So 100,000 of 300,000 is 33%. So that.
Well, it's 100 of 400, because if it appraises at 400, a 100K gap on 400 is 25 though.
This is like two toddlers in a boxing ring, like hitting each other. You and I trying to argue about math.
Let's rock 'em, sock 'em, robots. Let's do it.
A futile endeavor. I mean, if anyone sees this and knows how math works, and they're just laughing their tails off at these two jokers.
The attorney and the dork. Yeah, I love it.
Ask Joey about rates. Don't ask him about other ways of calculating percentages. So I love it. All right, we got a little bit of time left. I could chew through that topic. I mean, there's more to say about it, and maybe once we have our other two regulars in here, presumably next week, Charlie Bellefontaine. I'll give him a little plug, since without him, basically, I'm not sitting here right now. He is the home inspector. He may not be allowed to say this, but I'll say it. He's the best around. If you're in Chicago and you're buying a home, Chicagoland Home Inspectors is who you should be seeking out. You can find them at Chicago. Well, what is it? You know what? I'm gonna blow it. Just Google Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Click on the first link that shows up. You'll see all of. He's got loads and loads of 5-star reviews, and there's a good reason for it. And you'll click the first organic result on Google that you find, and the very first page will be a bald guy flying a drone. If you see that, you know you're in the right spot. Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Go hire his company, his team of people. They will. That's your absolute best bet. So that's that. And our other regular, Steve Davis. I'm Steve Davis on all the socials I'm aware of. Steve, I just actually wrote a really nice review for him because Steve is you'll hear a lot of agents go, I go the extra mile, or we have concierge service, all this kind of hollow sounding language. And I'm sorry for, this is what I do this to myself. I just crap on everything about, what realtors do. And then I wonder why they don't want to work with me. But, look, the point is that Steve well and truly does he goes not the extra mile, like farther to make sure his clients get the best experience. They get the most money from the sale. They get the best representation in the purchase. They're going to get the best price. If you want all of those things, Steve Davis is who you ought to be seeking out. I mean, he really is. I don't just blow smoke. I can tell you all the real estate brokers I don't like. I won't do that because I've already been shooting myself in the foot left and right in the past 3 minutes.
Go.
Maybe we can work on chopping this from it's live stream. I'm already screwed. So anyways, couple of plugs for two people who who I really do value, as Charlie would say. So anyways, we're getting, believe it or not, we are getting close to the end of our allotted time. If you've made it all the way this far with us, God bless you. I love you. I appreciate you. Joey, is there anyone you want to shout out some appreciation to, or just, some final remarks, some final thoughts you got?
No, I mean, I wish that I could bloviate more about Charlie and Steve, because this whole talk has been about the value of the real estate agent. I mean, everybody on this show is bringing value to the table, right? And people don't realize how much value add that they have until something goes wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem, the thing you never see when you're working with these people is you never see the things go wrong because we get in front of it. Like, we deal with these problems before you see a problem. It's so tough for people to realize the value until they've tried to navigate without, and they go back in time. They're like, oh man, I wish I had hired a realtor.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wish I had hired a good inspector, a good attorney, a good mortgage guy. Like, so it's one of those things that you don't know what you have until you've tried it without. And then you go back to, like, okay, I'm never doing it again that way. I'm always gonna hire my realtor. I'm always gonna have a good home inspector. Like, and it's also tough to find who is good and who is not. And I know that Charlie, I trust him with my family. Like, he has done home inspections for everybody in my family. Steve, like, we work together on deal. Like, I work with different realtors all the time. I won't talk crap about anybody, but I will say that there is a difference between a professional who is doing a lot of transactions and someone who's here to close their grandparents' sale in the estate because that's just they happen to carry a license, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we work with good people. That's what I'm getting at.
That's what's up. All right, I've got very little time left, but if you've stuck with me this long, stick with me for another 30 seconds. Look, one big difference between people who are extremely successful and extremely wealthy and the rest of us is that people who have that kind of success will hire coaching to learn skills more quickly, to get expert advice, to basically make sure that they have the absolute best when it comes to learning and understanding difficult things, new things, whatever it is. Okay. The reason I point that out is it goes directly to what Joey was just saying, which is that you could try to go it alone. You can waste a ton of time trying to bring yourself up to speed, and you'll never be as expert as someone that's doing it every day, or you could hire coaches. You could be like the billionaires are and don't be like, one of the rest of us. So anyways, this has been the Home Buyer. Well, what are we now? We changed the name. Chicago Home Experts? Is that what we are now? I don't know.
Chicago Home Experts?
Yeah, we did it. All right.
Let's go with that for today.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. If you want to hear us live, we go on at about 10:15, depending on how difficult the issues are with the tech. Some weeks are better than others. If you want to listen live on the radio, we are on WCPT, where facts matter. Find us, listen to us at 6 a.m. on Saturday. God bless you if that is you. I'm signing off. Joey, thank you for being with me. Say hi to the rooster, and we'll see you next week.